I lacked clarity. I lacked confidence because I didn't know what I wanted. I was not getting any opportunities. I say it after my second month, that's when I got a little concerned that my approach just wasn't working. I felt like I needed something, I needed coaching.
Welcome back to the podcast, my friends. I am back with a very special episode. Today, I have a guest on the podcast, and I have one of our clients in the Star Candidate program, Daniel, sharing his story. He talks about his experience going through a second layoff, what he was doing on his own, what was going through his head. And in fact, actually, you learn that he felt like he was doing all the right things on his own. He had a bit of a network, he was reaching out to those contacts, but he felt like the market this time was different and he really needed that additional level of support. And just in 4 months, Daniel got a new offer. In fact, he was interviewing for multiple opportunities while he was already negotiating his offer, which of course felt so good. He got an offer in a new area of supply chain that he wanted to get into. And in fact, in the program, he got a lot of clarity around what his next chapter is. And that's exactly what he made happen for himself. He got a much more senior role that he had before. He got a 25% salary increase, a very substantial signing bonus, and he is in the process of moving his family to a new state to start this new chapter. I invite you to listen in to his story because I have a feeling that a lot of what he shares and what he was experiencing and the thoughts that were coming up and the doubts and just what he was learning in the process, I have a feeling that it will resonate with a lot of you. And as always, if you're listening to his story and thinking, I think I really need that support on my journey as well, you're in the right place. Make sure you book a call with my team and we can talk through ways we can work together and how you can join the Star Canada program. We'll add a link to book a call in the show notes. With that, let's dive into the episode. Hi, Daniel. So excited to have you with us here today. And I know that you recently got a new offer and already started your new job. So I am so excited to have you here today and to talk about your journey to this new offer.
Excited to be here, Anna. Thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
All right. I know that when we first connected, what is it, about a little bit more months ago, you were coming out of a layoff.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious to hear where your mind was at that point.
Sure. So this isn't my first rodeo. When I've gone through a layoff, this was my second one I've experienced. So I think for me, it was probably an immediate shock. I was on, and I'm just trying to remember that conversation with HR. It was very quick. It was on the phone, which is very uncommon. And she was just telling me my role was being eliminated. So it was a pretty big shock to me. But because I have experienced it before, I felt like I was a little bit more prepared with my emotions. And so I just took that shock in for maybe 20 or 30 minutes, went over, told my wife, she was shocked. And from there, I was okay. Well, I've been through this before. I know exactly what to expect. And so from there, of course, I immediately started looking for opportunities.
So I am curious, when you immediately started looking for opportunities, what was your approach and was that successful for you?
It's a very good question. So I did have a foundation of networking. I was already reaching out to several people in my group. I was talking to friends and just people from my community and my church. So like I had a foundation already and I knew this is like the path going forward. But as you know, this year was just different. I was not getting any opportunities. Like for the first 2 months prior to me going into this program, I probably had 3 interviews within those 2 months. And one of them was most likely an informational interview. So there wasn't really much to that. And I say it after my second month, that's when I got a little concerned that my approach just wasn't working. I felt like I needed something, I needed coaching, and so from there, I one of my friends that I mentioned this to, he actually approached me with your program. And he's like, "Hey, you should check out Anna. That she has a really good program, and I think you can actually benefit from that." So I decided to investigate it. I investigated your program, and I did some research, and yeah, and then shortly after I jumped on calls with you, I jumped on calls with Monisha.
And I remember that it took you some time to make this decision
Yeah,
to
I did.
invest in yourself. I
Yeah.
am curious, looking back, I'm curious, what was the hesitation?
That's a very good question for me. So, and I'm kind of analytical. I'm a numbers guy. It comes with the territory. I think for me, it was definitely the investment. When someone loses their job, you're immediately thinking, okay, if I'm going to be spending this now, what is the opportunity cost for other things that I can have, or other for paying bills or the mortgage or stuff like that? Like those are the things that were going through my mind at that time. So that was probably the big reason why I hesitated at first. And so, and I think to answer your other question, I feel like I know what you're going to ask. So, for what changed at that time was the invitation to go into your calls prior to me joining the program. And I think for me, this really helped watching other students asking you questions in those live calls. It really helped me to see that there were other people that were struggling, that they were also going through a process, and it just opened my eyes that there was real value in the program that had real people, real problems. They were also investing time and energy and money. And I just thought, like, what the heck? Why don't I give it a shot and truly invest in it?
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I'm curious, when you look back at your journey and starting to network on your own and having a couple of interviews and feeling, okay, something is different this time and the market is different and I
Mhm.
need additional support. And now that you have had that additional support, I'm curious, looking back, do you have any reflection or insight into what do you think was missing for you in the beginning before you had additional tools and strategies and support?
Man, that's a really good question. I would say the biggest thing that was missing for me, and this is going to be probably a long answer, it was clarity. It was clarity because when I got laid off, even though I knew I wanted to find a job and I needed to bridge that gap, that financial gap, I lacked clarity and I lacked confidence because I didn't know what I wanted. I felt like, am I really happy with my career? I was already thinking these things from the beginning and through that process. And so your program, especially for modules 1 and 2, answers that very clearly. Um, because as I was working through those modules, it gave me so much more clarity about myself and what I was actually where I was actually at. Because in life, things change. For example, when I graduated, I took any job because that's just pretty much how things go. You take any job so you can get something, and then you spend all these years, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids. Like your priorities and your life is just so much more different 5 or 10 years later down the road. And so I think for me is that my clarity and just things got very skewed along the way. And once I started like sitting down and identifying what I really wanted and answering the why, that's what really changed things for me through this program and going forward is understanding why and understanding what I really wanted. And that was kind of like the foundation of this program and for me as I moved forward.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for this insight. And I find it to be very powerful to say, having been laid off and probably feeling pressure of, okay, well, I probably should move fast here, having a family and having kids, but also having the confidence in yourself to say
Mhm.
that I am not going just for anything. I want to get clarity what is actually right for me
Right.
rather than just going with with the flow, which I think a lot of us end up doing, especially when there's more involved, like family and kids and the mortgage. So this is, I just want to celebrate you for that, for having that confidence in yourself that I can do this and I can, as you probably know, I call it slow down to speed up in the
Mm,
beginning to get that clarity. So just wanted to celebrate you for that.
thank you so much.
And then I am curious. So you talked about module one and two. So that's where we start with your mindset and confidence. And then
Mhm,
module two is building your dream job prototype and really getting clear on what skills you have, what skills you actually enjoy using, what type of company and product and culture you're looking for, and really digging deep there. And
mhm.
I remember that that process in the beginning was maybe a little bit slower for you.
It was.
Um, I am curious if you look back at that experience because it is different for different people. There are people in the program who go through that very quickly, come out and say, hey, this is exactly what I want to do. I feel very confident, and they move forward with those target roles and companies very quickly. But that's actually more uncommon, I would say, because clarity does typically take a few weeks and often months
Right.
because we usually don't slow down enough. So I am curious how you felt slowing down and focusing on what is right for me next.
So that you did bring up a good question because in the beginning, it did take me a while to find some clarity. And I want to add too, because everyone's circumstances is different. I was doing a part-time job. I was working, not construction. I was working with a builder and fixing houses. And so I was physically going to other places. I was usually out there 8 hours of the day. So I was just physically exhausted, right? And so I think that kind of added to the complexity of this whole process. And for me, it didn't help. But once I actually sat down and said, you know what, like I need to prioritize this program, I need to start setting like actionable days where I can sit down and watch the videos and actually, participate in the program. So once I started doing that, that's kind of where things started changing and started actually moving forward. And and then the real change happened for me once I got into module three, because obviously you and I both know that once I got into that, that started leading into conversations. And once I started having those conversations, that immediately started leading into interviews.
And module number three is Network Like a Pro, where we dig really deep into what networking is, how to approach it, how to find people, how to reach out to them, and then what to do when you actually book those meetings.
Yeah.
And what you're actually describing this process of, you know, a little bit slower in the beginning, getting into clarity, getting quite specific with what's next, that can take a few weeks, especially if you have other things going on.
Yeah.
And then once you get to the action, which is networking, you probably have heard me say that time and time again, that
Yeah.
that's where the interviews are going to come from.
Yep.
And that's where I want to say it was maybe month two, maybe end of month two,
Yeah.
where I remember you were very quickly seeing a lot of momentum and multiple both conversations and interviews. What I'm curious to hear about, because in the beginning you said that you had some network already and you knew that that is important and you were
Right.
trying to do that, but maybe wasn't moving forward the way you'd like to, you would
Hmm.
have liked to. So I am curious to hear what was different this time around.
Yeah. As far as like the networking side of it. Yeah. So I think for me, now that I had that foundation and I had some more clarity as I worked through the dream job prototype, I knew exactly what I was looking for. And so that actually helped me narrow in, okay, who do I talk to for specific roles with the specific industries and specific companies? And so that gave me a like more clarity, more direction on who I wanted to reach out to. And then from there, it just made the conversations a lot more easier because I actually had interest. I actually had passion for those roles or for the industries that or the companies that they were in. And it just made things a little bit easier. Before, I kind of was just throwing a dart in the darkness, and I didn't really know like where I was going at the time. So that's why I think for me that's what was like the big change, the big pivot for me was once I had that clarity and I knew exactly what I was looking for, it made the networking piece a little easier.
That is really a textbook path that you took. First, really getting clarity, and then getting very specific and targeted with where and how you're spending your time when it comes to job search. And speaking of where you spend your time, something that really stood out to me about your prep and your time in the program was that, as you know, we push you guys to do interview practice and to start early on, but then to continue practicing multiple times a week. And I tell every new client who joins, week 3, 4 is when they start practicing. And
Hmm.
I tell them at least twice a week. But something I remember with you was that you would say, hey, I have 5 peer mock calls, interview calls this week. So you really went all out with that interview repetition and
Yep.
prep and mock interviews. So I am curious as to what you feel like that did for you in your interview, both preparation and then performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to preface it before though, because and if I were to go back, I probably would have done things differently. I would have if I would have jumped in sooner and maybe the process would have happened a lot more quickly. But everything happens for a reason, so it's totally fine. I would say what helped me jump into that, and the reason why is because I had mentors, I've had coaches who've told me you got to fail fast and you got to fail forward quickly. And once I started seeing others do it in the group, and once I actually started getting conversations going through networking, I really need to start jumping into this very quickly because I need to practice and I need to fail fast. Because I knew that in order to get better at something, you got to make a lot of mistakes. And so that was like a thing I already knew, but I had to apply that into your program. I started seeing others post their availability. I did the same thing. I just took the action. I said, "Hey, let's get together, anyone or everybody in the group." And I was very surprised. I did get a lot of people signed up, and so for me, that as I was going through those practices, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure others would tell you the same thing. I made a lot of mistakes, but I was okay with that. I was okay with making mistakes. I was okay with practicing, and over time, that becomes more confidence. Like you become more confident in your answers and you start to remember, like even though you have everything in writing, you start to remember your stories. And that usually reflects better on your conversations with interviewers, actual interviewers. Um, so I guess like, and this in a way is advice to those who are joining your program. Like I would advise the sooner the better and to actually practice one on one with actual people because you just never know who you're going to get on the other side of that interview table. Like you're going to get real people, but they're all different. They all have different personalities and different things they're looking for. So the more people you practice with in the group, the more prepared you're going to be.
Oh, I don't think I could have said this better myself. And what you're describing is really what your experience is truly what I believe sets you up for success with interviews. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of starting early and starting weeks, if not even months before you have those real interviews. Because what you're describing is reps is what makes you more confident. As with anything, any skill that you're building or anything in life, the more you do it, the more natural it feels, the more of that muscle memory that you're developing, so that in the moment, you're not thinking about what's next in that story, but you can really be present. So your delivery is very different, your body language, your energy. And you can also really listen to what they're saying because otherwise you're just so stressed about what you're going to say next. So that's when you walk out of the interview feeling like, I actually don't know what this job is about because I was not really listening. I was just, the second they were talking, I was just thinking, oh, okay, I get 30 seconds of breathing room where I don't have to be on. So
Mhm.
I have to say that I love, love, love how much practice you did and how much prep you did. And it all shows because As you know, we have our team of coaches. We have our interview coach, Coach Matt, and something, and I have shared that with you before,
Yeah.
that he pointed out to me that you're one of the best people he's interviewed in the program and helped in the program. And I do have to say that I do believe a lot of it has to do with the reps that you've put in.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that you're sharing this, because I want other people in the program to hear it, but even people who are not in the program to also know that this is what it takes at a more senior level, at six-figure, multi-six-figure level. Is It's not just something that you wake up with, but it is something that you develop. It's a skill, and it's something that you really need to practice over and over again. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And then now maybe we can talk about your offer. So maybe you can
Absolutely.
tell me about the offer that you got.
Absolutely. I will start off. So, as far as like the job itself, it's a senior manager opportunity. So, it's titled Senior Manager Supply Planning and Contract Manufacturing, which actually tied back to my job prototype, which was perfect. This was actually an area that I've been trying to get into for so long. And so the industry itself is in CPG, so it's consumer product goods, and they make health products. They make products that you put on your body, like lotions, shampoos. They make consumables. So this was all part of the dream job prototype that I was looking for, which aligned very well. The culture, like I spoke with my boss a number of times. I spoke with several folks that worked in the industry or in the company, and they all said the same thing. They loved working there. It was a good culture, a good environment. They A lot of the times most people would stay there 10 plus years. So that told me that it was a good fit culturally, and that it was something that was worth moving, and just being able to take my family to this other city. So I felt really, really good about that. And I don't know how much more in depth you want me to get into the offer itself, but I did, as far as like negotiating goes, like I did negotiate up to 25,000 more than what I was originally making. So that was a big win through this whole process, was negotiating that, and also negotiating my title from manager to senior manager.
Mhm. And I remember you also got a pretty substantial moving and relocation bonus as well,
That's
which
correct.
probably what was helpful with you moving your whole family and
Oh yeah, yeah.
buying a new house and just
Yes.
really uprooting your life, which is huge.
Yes, that's correct. And yeah, and that in itself did allow us to put money into our down payment with our second property, which was a huge win as well. Thanks to, of course, thanks to your coaching and thanks to your advice, and it really helped me through that process.
I love that so much. But what I also remember, after you got this offer, you did not stop. And I remember, maybe you already signed the offer or you were negotiating the offer still. You told
Mhm.
me, hey, this opportunity came up again from this past conversation that I had. And I remember you were interviewing still for a number of opportunities as you were signing the offer. And that is something that you probably know I really advocate for, is to continue to create opportunities,
Mhm.
even if you are in final rounds, even if you're negotiating an offer, because you feel more confident negotiating that offer.
True.
You feel that there are options, and it's not just this one thing that has to work out, and you're cornered into it. So I am curious what was going on in your head as you were negotiating and also interviewing, because I think for a lot of people, the instinct is, well, it's done now. I can relax. It's done. So this is the hard part is
Yeah,
over. So I'm curious why you continued on with the momentum.
absolutely. Very good question. And so my mindset around that was, it's not over until it's over. And I think this is also from just like previous experiences that I've had interviewing in the past. You're right. I think it's so easy once you go into an interview, you're just like, this is the only one and I'm going to stick to it because it's comfortable. And you are already expending so much time and so much energy into it, which I can completely understand now. But because I was already going through this process, I was getting two or three interviews at a time, And even though I was going through, like, I got the offer, I just made it very clear in my mind, like, it's not over until it's over. And I just want to see what's out there. And I wanted to continue having that momentum and going through the process. And so, what that ended up doing for me, and I'll actually share this with you and also whoever's listening. So, before I got the offer, I was already in two interview processes. And I think what ended up getting me this offer was I did mention to them that I was in the final stages of another interview, which, you and I know that's what happened. And I kid you not, I think that ended up speeding up the process for me, where the following week they gave me an offer. So
I that's the
yeah,
best that's the best place to be in,
yeah,
and that genuine, hey, this is really cool. I really want for this to work out. I do have to let you know that I'm in the final rounds for two other opportunities. So let's finalize this
yeah.
so that we don't miss out on an opportunity to work together. So
Hmm.
I love that was your mindset and your experience, and I really appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah. And yeah, so that really helped speed up that process. But even then, I was still going through the negotiation. And even though I was going through that, I was still going through interviews because I still wanted to keep that momentum. I had it in my mind like anything could happen. If it falls through, then at least I have this other opportunity and I'm still building that momentum and keeping myself going there.
Love that. And then I remember you got the offer, you signed, and then I remember just a couple of weeks later you posted in the community that you're buying a new house
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
you're moving, and so many things are happening in a span of a couple of weeks, and
Hmm.
you're moving to a new state and city with your family. And what I remember really stood out to me in that update is that you mentioned that you were using the skills that you have built in the program around meeting people and negotiating and networking to now apply them in other areas of your life.
Hmm.
So I would love to hear maybe a little bit about that.
Yes. So let me start off by saying this. Before joining this program, I never would have foresaw myself growing in ways that could have been applicable to other areas. I'll start by saying that because obviously the program, it advocates and it markets itself to help you find a job and to find a fulfilling career and a better salary, but I never would have anticipated that the skill sets and the growth that I've got from this program would have like manifested itself to other areas. So to go to your point, yes, after I got the job and I accepted it and everything was good to go, I immediately went over to St. Louis and I started looking for houses with my wife. And we found a house and we started going through the negotiation process. And for me, that felt really, it felt easier because I just simply took what I've learned from your negotiation process and just simply applied that over, right? Instead of, it wasn't a job, it was actually a house. And we were able to negotiate under the market. So we negotiated about $12,000, roughly 12,000. It was a little more than that. And right now, and I don't know how much you know or understand about real estate here, but that's like not common, especially in a seller's market. So we were able to negotiate lower. And after the inspection, we also negotiated them to fix certain things, which would have came out to be another 5,000 out of our pocket. But instead, the sellers are taking care of it. So lo and behold, we're saving 17 to $18,000 on top of the salary that I negotiated with my job. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that you learn from this program is going to easily transition over to other areas in your life, whether you're aware of it or not.
Mhm. I appreciate you sharing that because it we do focus on job search, but these are very much foundational skills around communication and networking and positioning and negotiation. So they very much translate into the rest of your career and your career within this new role and this new company, but also as you shared in other areas of your life. So really, really cool. Thank you for sharing. And maybe reflecting back on this full journey. And when I think back to it, I think it was just around 4 months from when you joined to
Mm,
when you signed the offer, which again, especially considering that you kind of took a little bit of time in the beginning to ramp things up, is
yeah.
actually very, very fast with a transition into a different role with 25K increase and also moving to a new state. So there's a lot to celebrate here. What I'm curious to hear is, what would you say you are most proud of looking back on this journey?
That's a very good question. I and this kind of ties back to what I shared earlier. I think for me, I am most proud of taking the leap and having the faith to go through it, even when I didn't understand what I was getting myself into. I'm a person who makes decisions based on facts, like data facts. And I'm so glad that I took the leap and have been able to actually see the growth. And like, I was able to witness that throughout the process. And so I'm very appreciative that I took that action and was able to follow through with that. Even if it did take me a little bit longer, the most important thing for me was that I followed through with it and saw the rewards from that, from taking that action.
And if I may, from my perspective, it's the fact that you were open to learning, you were open to coaching, you were vulnerable, that you would raise your hand and ask for help and share where you're at, whether it's facts, whether it's mentally, because that does take strength. I think for a lot of people, there is that feeling that, well, I should know how to do this.
Mhm.
Even when they are in the program, it can be sometimes uncomfortable to ask for help. So what I noticed for you was that you were very comfortable asking for help and being vulnerable with it and being vulnerable with the challenges and struggles that were coming up for you. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for trusting and for being vulnerable.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you for having the program and that I think honestly, like it allows people to be vulnerable. And I think in order to progress and to be successful in this program, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to be
Mm.
vulnerable and you're going to have to accept change.
Yeah, but I also think that in general, with growth and learning, you have to be vulnerable and you have to be open. Otherwise, it's really hard to learn a new skill, or even in this case, set of skills. And I guess also looking back at your journey and what we started with, that there was some hesitation after a layoff to invest in yourself. And I think it's very common, and we see it a lot in the program. A lot of people in the program now are laid off or
Yep.
know that they're getting laid off in the next few months. And it is often scary, and it's
Hmm.
understandable that it is scary when you know that this is coming or this just has happened, to also say, hey, I'm going to get help and I'm going to invest in myself. So looking back, what would you say to someone in that position right now?
Absolutely. So I think the number one thing is don't be afraid. I was there too. I would highly encourage you to, if you're listening, take my word for it and take the leap. Because yes, you are dealing with something. If you are going through a layoff, I've been there. I've been there twice. So I've been there one more many than I should be. And so I know what that feels like. And for those of you who are potentially going to go through that, like I would just highly encourage you to find a coaching program and to just jump all in, go all in and put in everything into it. And that would be my biggest advice, because trust me, if you do that and you actually like commit yourself to going through all the modules and actually taking that action, um, you are going to come out to be successful. It is going to happen.
Love that. And maybe now moving forward and looking forward, going forward, my final question for you today is, thinking about your career and your approach to your career, your approach to the next steps in your career. What's different looking forward now? What's different for you now than it was 4 months ago when you started in the program?
Yeah. So before I was just going through the motion, I was just there to do the job. And I think that was the mentality I brought over from graduating. Like I just was looking for a job and I was just trying to fill a need. But now the way I look at my career, um, I look at it so much more like it's much more broad than that. It's not just that you're there to just fill to be a cog in the wheel. Like you're there to make an impact. You're there to build relationships with your coworkers. You're there to add value to the team, to your manager, to his boss. Like you're not only there to help them be profitable, but you are also becoming profitable outside of that. And now the way I look at things, it's like I'm trying to be more active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more social and network with people now. And it's just so much more. It's so much more than that now than it was for me in the past. And so this is just the way I look at it now. Is like you always have to be willing to network. You have to be willing to grow. Right now I invested in a training program just so that I could do my job better, but also add value to myself and the company. So like I'm actually investing in myself more than I was before.
Oh, that's actually something I have noticed with clients in the program. After the program, I've heard people would tell me, "Hey, I hired a dating coach. I hired a communication coach." And I think this is the coolest thing ever because that was my personal experience with coaching. The first time I invested in a program, I thought it was life changing and I just wanted more of it. And I just knew, oh, I can invest in myself and work with someone who
Hmm.
knows more than I do in this area and I can go faster. I was hooked.
Yeah.
So I always love when I hear other people's experience going through coaching and feeling like, well, I want more of that in other areas of my life. So love that that was your experience. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your experience. And I celebrate you. And I'm so proud of how far you've come in just a matter of a few months. And I know you already started your new job. I know there are big changes in your life happening. I know you're moving. So, really proud of you.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate everything, like the coaching and just everything, the advice that you've given me throughout this course. And thank you for having me on your podcast too.
Thank you.